Happy 2024, everybody. Welcome to Mavericks of Senior Living with myself, Katherine Wells, Chief, Inspiration Officer, and Francis Lagasse,
Chief Curiosity Maverick.
Woohoo. That's it. Yes.
Yeah, it's okay.
I can't. It's early.
It's early.
It's Friday. Yeah, early in the year.
It's early in the year.
So exciting. So today we're going to talk about what we think is going to be happening in 2024 in the aging services field.
We'll kind of recap a little bit, kind of tail into 23, and then bring into where things are going to shift. It's going to be a little wacky and wild, I think, in 24.
I think so too. I think so too. A few things might shake out, and we're still going to be in an interesting pattern.
Yeah, but before that, we're going to kick off with our sponsor of the day, and then we will get back and dive into tech, right? We're going to start with tech.
Well, let's start with tech. Let's do it. My favorite.
This incredible show made possible by our wonderful sponsors, Assured Senior Living, Love, It's What We Do, and Serenity Engage, where care connects. Now, a brief message from Serenity Engage. Serenity connects aging service providers, older adults, and their loved ones in a single network. Our web, mobile, and smart assistance products power the network that enables real-time, HIPAA-compliant communication, collaboration, and education. When we care together, providers increase revenue and lower expenses, older adults receive better care, and family has greater peace of mind.
Welcome back. Here we are. So 2024, Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you had a good one and a happy, healthy holiday season. And so now we're going to dive into tech. So age tech, which is my favorite topic.
Age tech.
We have to specify age tech because we were talking about gaming and things like Dr. Mario and Mario Brothers earlier, which is always fun too. So
Nintendo emulator, bringing back the old days.
Bringing back the old days. When your kids call you old school, yeah, there's something there, right? Yeah. All right. So I have a few predictions and thoughts on what's going to happen this year.
Can we define age tech though? Because that's a good point. When we're talking about age tech, I mean, even for me does this technology fall into age tech or is this just new tech?
Well, so that's a blurry line. I think it can be a very blurry line. Okay. So technology can fall in the age tech category. Okay. And age tech, this is a good question. Age tech to me is the ability for technology to improve the lives of older adults or those who love and care for them. That could be family members, that could be staff at a community or a hospice or a home health.
So let me throw this question then so when you talk about longevity and like that longevity, does that fall like someone that has a longevity app for, I don't know, fasting, right? Intermittent fasting, things like that, where it improves maybe the health of longevity or things like that, or like the glucose monitoring that's like, helps with CGM stuff. Is that age tech or is that just tech?
There's a few blurry lines there. Okay. So I think the longevity, fasting kinds of things, that's just health.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, it helps with longevity. But to me, that's just health. Diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes, that does, I think, begin to creep into age tech because that happens mostly for people who are of an older age.
But we're seeing a lot younger. That's
interesting. So that can be a blurry line.
Okay.
When we're talking, the age tech that we're going to talk about today is primarily specifically for older adults, for creating a better quality of life as you
and the reason I'm kind of needling a little bit is I want to make sure that I want to make sure we all come from the same point, right? Because if we're starting to talk about what we think is age tech, someone's like, well, that's not age tech, that's just aging, healthy tech, I don't know, technology type thing.
Right. So, and some of it will be, but I think most of it is going to fall squarely in that bucket. But this gives us a good to do for the future is to describe specifically what we mean when we talk about age tech on the podcast and in our business here as we educate people on senior care and the journey. So I'd like to actually start with, and we're on the video podcast right now. So if you're just listening, you'll need to look in the notes to get this. But if we could pull up the technology map. It's an age tech map that is put out every year by the gerontologist is the name of it. And we'll put all of these credits and links in the show notes so that you can get to it. But this map is going to show you the crazy world of technology, of age tech in the amount of providers. So we're undergoing a digital transformation in senior care. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean, this is a field, an industry that has long been averse to adopting technology. It's very, very old school. There's a lot of manual processes. There's a lot of paper processes, very, very inefficient, lots of places for information, critical information to drop. And so what technology is now doing and has been doing for the last couple of years, really. This, if you have watched the progression of this map that we'll show in a few minutes, you will see that it went from a pretty small map to, holy cow, there are more products and companies and applications out there than anyone could ever imagine.
Well, is that because we know aging is such a dollar industry? I mean, is there just a lot, or why is that becoming such like a hotbed?
So I have an opinion. This is not scientific fact, but my opinion is that people like me who have gone through it, who've gone through the senior care journey and felt the pain of this old school industry, said, I can help with this. I can solve this. And so people are coming in with, I see an opportunity to help relieve pain in this industry and make this journey easier for everyone involved. Okay. And so we come in with, here's a point solution. Here's something that will solve this particular pain. And that's what you'll see with all of these different apps is this particular pain is being solved. What's not happening, and I'll just do a shameless self-promotion here, and what Serenity is working towards doing, and our aim is to encompass all of this, be the one place to go and integrate with all of the apps. Now, the reason I talk about this is because at the beginning of any digital transformation of any industry, and this has happened for centuries before us, it starts with a lot of apps. It starts with, hey, let's solve this one problem. And then you start to see consolidation. So, and are we showing this on the screen now? Okay. So it starts with consolidation, or it starts with all of these various apps. I mean, if you look at this is mind-boggling. It makes no sense to me, actually. Well, and as an operator, and we'll get into your predictions as an operator, how could you ever look at that and say, there's a solution to my pain? You're going to look at that and be in more pain and walk away, right? And go do your own Google research. So as much as this is an important map, and it's very important for the industry, it's kind of an industry insider's map. It's not really designed to help you buy because there's just too much there.
And just even looking at it here at myself, I mean, you've got for caregivers to retirement, to senior living, to wellness, to smart home, to wearables, to, fall prevention. I mean, you've got companionship and communication.
Let me tell you.
To me, this seems like I don't want to have a piece of tech
exactly
in every one of these categories because, that's just too much to manage. Even for me as a person.
Right. And think about the fact that there is a small team of people who put this map together every year. So the only ones that are on here are the ones that have crossed their radar. So this is still not an all-inclusive map. There are a lot of providers that I know of personally that are not on here. You can't get all the categories in there. And the problem is you now see, it used to be maybe 3 categories. Now there's, 25 categories. So you can't really make sense of it. So the point there is that this digital transformation, my prediction is we're going to continue on the path in 2024 to see the transformation take place. A lot of these on this map, a lot of these businesses are going to go under or they're going to get acquired.
So let's talk about that. Is it because that they just can't hit that tipping point revenue wise, or they can't get the market share? What's going to force them to? I mean, I know cash flow is king, right? Cash is king, right? But like, what is it? Just they're missing the market.
It's product market fit. So when you're a startup, you come with a solution to a problem and you test it in the market, and you find out, will the market pay for this? Will one person pay for this is step number one.
Right.
Okay, got one person to pay for it. Now can I get many people to pay for it? And that's the product market fit. And if you can't get many people to pay for it and pay for it in a way that helps you be profitable, then you don't have product market fit. And that's where I'm going to venture to guess 80% of the companies on this map are still in search mode, which is searching for product market fit.
Wow. Do you think, given kind of, with where the economy's kind of resettled from rates and investor palatability and all these return metrics and things like that, that we were kind of in this false startup environment where you didn't have to be good at business, good at that stuff, because money was so inexpensive and it was so plethora and people wanted this aging component in their portfolio?
It's the right question to ask. I would say in 2021 and 2022, that was more accurate.
Gotcha, okay.
2023, the investment reins tightened a lot. And in fact, the criteria for investors to invest in terms of traction that exists in the company, which is the product market fit component, increased. They wanted to, so they're waiting. They do not want to put their money in at the high risk early stage.
Okay.
They're waiting and telling startups now, and I'm a startup, so I hear this all day long from our investors and potential investors. We want to see more traction. We want to see higher, faster month over month growth. We want to see higher revenue dollars, and then we'll come back and consider investing in you. So it's a very, very much a catch-22. The industry at large has to adopt technology.
Right.
We are in a place where we can do nothing but invest in technology to augment the very limited staff and home care providers to be able to care for our older adults.
I wouldn't even say that. I mean, there's a benefit to having tech, right? There's efficiencies.
Huge benefit.
And I think this is what I've always said about technology. I want it to be so efficient that the only spot I need a person is loving on another person.
I love that.
That's all I want.
Yes.
I don't, and I want that to be the focus of what we have, is every one of our people is there to care and love on a resident, not have to do the busy work, comply with this regulation of document tracking or this and this or this, HR background review or things like that, right? Where we have to have a person go through and be like, okay, this person's vetted, these are the trainings they've had. Yep, they match to this, we're state compliant, right? Using that as a high level. I want tech to be like, it helps with maybe those tougher transfers where someone's worried about hurting their back, or I can't, I have to staff differently because this person only can use a Hoyer lift, right? But let's have tech that I don't need to worry about a Hoyer lift because there's this maybe humanoid that has a better way to transfer, and I don't need to worry about injuring a staff member, right?
Yep.
That's where I want tech in healthcare is. I still feel there's nothing like that warmth, that compassion of looking into another person's eyes going, hey, I got you. I know you're struggling right now, but I got you. And when you can slow down and do that, the impact, verbal and nonverbal, you will have on that person, I think, cannot be replaced by technology.
Absolutely agree. And that's going to be the interesting thing. We're not going to see it at a tipping point in 2024. I hope in 2025 we do see a tipping point of senior care providers across the segments adopting technology to increase efficiency of their own team so that their team has more time to do the hands-on care that only humans can do. And that does take operators saying, I'm willing to make these changes, because it will change their processes.
Do you think part of the investor space is you have the sales cycle and even the lead time to implement these? you have operators that don't put that energy in to be a champion of their, their pilots or because of
Yes.
19 million other things that they're worried about right now.
Yes. It's not a blame game. You're right. It's very much, there's so much happening and it's so chaotic in the senior care space that, yes, I think that is an issue.
Thinking about our stuff is like, we're, very pro pilot, like to test things out, but you have to figure out how you're going to do that, because there is, a lot of moving parts outside of testing a new product.
There are. And honestly, that comes down to the startup that you're working with. And that is the onus of the startup to drive that pilot process, to give you very, very clear. So if you're looking to pilot something, and I highly encourage you to do that, define initially, what are your priorities for that pilot? What do you want to see get out? What do you want to get out of it? What are your measurable metrics that at the end of the pilot, and it should be a defined period of time, you can look at it and say, that was a successful pilot. I can see the vision of this as I expand it. And now I'm ready and I'm going to buy. And that is the onus of the startup, to manage that process very well for you.
Do you think ROI gets kind of misconstrued? And I mean in this, that they look for a dollar value ROI, not necessarily a time component or an ease of staff, workload or things like that. Do you think we get so focused on that, hey, we got to have a 10-cent return on our dollar every time we use this or something like that?
I do. And it depends on the organization and who you're talking to in the organization. CFOs always want to see the dollar, right? But the reality is, and I often get prospects asking me, so am I going to save a body? Do I get to let someone go or not have to hire someone? And the reality is, we're not going to be in the position to save bodies for a long time. Right. What we're doing is actually allowing the bodies that you do have, the staff members, the team members that you do have, we're allowing them to actually do what they were hired to do.
Right.
And that is to care, to provide that care, not to chase down 25 gazillion things and feel like they're frazzled all the time and frustrated. And so we see higher retention, we see happier employees, we see happier care recipients, we see happier family members, and all of that just becomes this giant care circle, really. And I know that sounds a little bit intangible. There's a lot of tangibility to the amount of time that you can save.
Right.
All right. So that was a lot of time on that. But I think the key takeaway here is that if providers can look at areas where they would like to improve, pick one or two and pilot something, find a great vendor that you want to work with, pilot with that vendor and give feedback. That's how we're going to begin to move the needle. We are beginning to see that more and more. That's good. I think that's really valuable.
As a startup, if you're still figuring out that product fit, reach out to providers in that space you want to first get into, whether it's home health, hospice, assisted living, independent living, memory care, skilled care. Reach out as you're in that iteration phase, right, where you have your first product design, but go to them before you think you solve something that might not be
a problem. And that is part of search mode. Product market fit. Startups should be doing all of their interviews beforehand. They should be showing drawings. They should be talking with people. So I don't mean to portray in any way that any one of these startups has not done that. It's a struggle because the industry doesn't know. So you have an industry going, I don't know what tech, I don't know what to do. And you have a bunch of startups saying, we can help you solve this. And there's so much noise. So as an operator, my advice is pick one or two problems you really want to solve. Correct. Forget the rest of the noise. Find a potential partner to pilot with and keep on that very strict kind of pilot cycle of what metrics do you want to see move the needle.
Yeah, it's well said.
All right. I think actually that one prediction there covers almost everything in tech except AI. So we didn't talk about AI, and everybody wants to talk about AI. I do not see, and Jeff Gray, thank you, Jeff Gray, shout out from Age Tech Atlanta. also shared this, that AI is not going to be a CMAS change in 2024.
No.
It will begin in late 2024, 2025, I think, is when we're going to see more AI. People are afraid of AI, but the reality is that most of it is AI assisted, meaning AI is doing a lot of the manual processing and power behind the scenes. And I'm making this very high level, of course, but it's doing a lot of work behind the scenes that just accelerates the human's ability to produce the right documents, like care plans, et cetera. So it's never AI on its own doing its own thing and running rogue. That is not happening. So it's very much AI assisted, and I don't see it changing massively in 2024. I think it will start in 2025.
Do you think this could all be scuttled, though, if you start seeing more legislation around AI? Do you think that could have a negative impact on it?
Depends on what the legislation says. So legislation can support it, and it can also halt it.
Hinder it's my concern, right?
Yep. And I think hindering it is not a good idea.
Right.
Having guardrails is always a good idea. Absolutely.
Not too tight of guardrails.
But not too tight of guardrails. If it's not allowed to do the things that it is designed to do, then it makes no difference. And frankly, I just don't see a way for it not to become part of almost every product out there. I mean, everything you do now, you write a blog post or a post on LinkedIn, and AI wants to rewrite it for you. Yeah. So,
and the way I write sometimes, cleaning up my grammar is not a bad thing. I'll take someone proofreading my grammar,
right?
Because I mean, there is that editor's eye, right? There really is. I mean, there is a better way to phrase some sentences, but I think that's what is still taking the human idea right at its core.
Yeah.
And improving that with minor iterations, or maybe there's a couple major ones in there, right? Or how you could clean up a line of code to make it more efficient, right? Think about it. If I wrote a page of code, but then I put it into some AI, hey, can you streamline this and cut 20 lines out? Oh my gosh, it's a better way to format it or write it, right? I mean,
so that you're right, and that's happening in the development world already. My developers use AI tools all the time that help them speed up their ability to deliver code.
Even debug too, right? Think about
absolutely.
Debugging was my worst thing.
And the interesting, right? And the interesting, where is that bug? The interesting thing is that it does not take away from the intellect of the human who is doing this, just like writing a post. Yep. When AI comes and kind of rewrites it for you, you learn from that and you get better and better.
It's no different when you write a book and you give it to your editor and you get it back with a bunch of markups and said, you could have phrased this like this, or I don't like this passive voice here. I want more of, an act, I don't know, whatever, you're going to do. So, I mean, again, I think what we're also going to see is if you have enough reviewer editors, you're just going to learn more from it, right? But also too, what's really cool is you have a bunch of people that don't think the same, start sharing ideas.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you create an idea or a solution that no one ever thought of because you took a piece from here, a piece from there, a piece from here, and you meshed it into this one thing. I was like, oh my God, that's workable.
It is, and it broadens our views with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so I took a lot of time on tech. What do you think is going to happen in the world of senior care operations?
I think we're going to run into a financial headway, maybe not this year or next year, but soon, where we're, I think this idea of just continue to raise rates, things like that are going to, start to snowball.
How so? So how will that impact?
Let's say you assumed you saved enough for retirement at $2 million, right? Let's just assume you did that, right? And you've got an okay income coming in, but now your care costs $15 a month. Okay. And
1,500, 15,000
a month.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
and that's not uncommon.
No, it's gone way up. I mean, it's continuing to skyrocket. And so my concern is you're going to have people burn or spend down their cash very, very fast, faster than anticipated, right? So you're going to start stressing the Medicaid or low income or Medi-Cal, depending on the state, pay system, right? And we already know there's not enough Medicaid beds in Colorado that are up to what you would say standard of the resort or luxury style living, right?
Yeah.
And, you know,
are there any? That's not, yeah.
Because
that's
most of the large luxury style do not take Medicaid. So when you run out of money, you are asked to leave.
Yes.
Plain and simple. Even if you've been there for 10 years, you're out of money.
Yeah.
See you later. You know,
and is this true? So I know you know that in Colorado. Is that true across the United States? I thought it was
there's only a few states, I think, that regulate. I don't think they regulate anybody to actually have to stay in their care, but you have to offer Medicaid beds potentially. I think there might be either on the docket or there might be a few states that have that. I can do a little digging into that, but at the end of the day, Medicaid financially doesn't work is the problem at the current. I mean, Colorado alone, just looking at that math, it economically doesn't shake out. It's $3,500 reimbursement for the assisted living or memory care provider to cover everything.
And the cost is higher than that.
The cost is going to be anywhere, depending on how you run, probably, I'd say 5,000 upwards to 7 or 8, depending on which, community is and what you're, what you owe for real estate, what you owe to investors, right? I mean,
and I think that's a really shocking number to a lot of people. Right. I know that I hear many people, and I know that some people in my family were guilty of this on occasion, saying to the senior living provider, well, we pay you X number of dollars a month. Why can't you do this?
Well, I do think as senior living providers, we do need to show why we charge what we charge.
Be more transparent,
transparency into what, I tell families.
Let's do a show on that. Let's talk about that and dive into what that costs.
And I tell families all the time that our biggest expense is the way we staff. With 2 people for 8 or 9 residents, that's where I want our money to go, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what matters to me. And so, it's one of those things that I think at the end of the day, we need more transparency in the space. I think we've got to clean up where the money goes, because some people are right. How am I paying you $20,000 a month? Like, there are communities that are $20,000 a month.
Yeah.
Which maybe they offer things that we don't, or things that other communities don't, which is fine.
Or they're located in a very expensive piece of land, or it's a very expensive building, or an older building that requires a great deal of money to maintain for safety standards.
Yep.
And then you start adding tech into that, right? And so that's another thing, another layer on top of that.
I think we're going to still have the staffing challenges. We still have to get people excited about aging. At the end of the day, we still need to go back and make sure we have a reverence to those that are aging. That just because you have a physical or emotional or cognitive setback or challenge doesn't mean you have no value, and that you need to be sat in a corner and sit in a chair. I think that has to be reestablished in our country, maybe even nationally or in the world or whatever it may be, or internationally, not nationally, but internationally in the world, of what it means that there are still stories to be told and lessons to be learned, even from someone that has cognitive, physical, or emotional challenges. And I think until that, but I also think the idea of aging in place is going to do a disservice, I think.
In many cases, I believe it will, if people age in place longer than they should.
Well, but what is aging in place? Like aging in the home you grew up in, or aging in a place that you want to age, or how you want to age. I think we got to go, because we're never going to have enough caregivers to do one-on-one care in everyone's home. That's never going to exist.
Yeah. Yep.
And
agreed.
And so I think we've got to get back some mindset. I also think our legislators, both locally, state, and federally, need to understand what actually aging is and the different services that's being done. And it's not all skilled nursing anymore. It's not all nursing homes, right?
Right.
And,
can we eradicate that term nursing home? Because even where there's 24/7 skilled nursing,
nursing home has a place though for medical necessity where you need around the clock.
But that's a skilled nursing community, right? That's
a rehabilitation center, skilled nursing.
Yeah, something other than labeling it nursing home, because it has such a negative connotation. You know what I'd like to see on the operator side? Tell me your thoughts. Probably not in 2024, but maybe in the next 3 to 5 years. I would love to see communities where people are intergenerational. And I know we're seeing a few of those now. I have a client who has a building on a major college campus. Really cool. The residents can attend classes. They can hang out and mix with the college students. Well, Also, what about communities that are aligned affinity wise, like Jimmy Buffett's senior living? Like, those are parrot heads. Those are people who love that kind of lifestyle.
I think all that is fantastic as long as the care levels are there to meet.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think to me is that a lot of that, in my opinion, lacks the actual substance for when you need care provided. Like, it's great for the independent and for those that really have a voice. But when we're talking about a staffing crunch and they're doing the best they can, not fault them at all, but
the higher acuity,
that's where I'm more concerned with, is when people need 2-person assists, wound care, heavy care, not, but not heavy care in the sense that, they're in a, death and dying stage. I mean, just, when they need some help, that's where my bigger concerns that I'm seeing a huge shift in the market.
So that's it. Let's talk about that. I think that started in the last 2 to 3 years, maybe.
When COVID started in the middle of COVID.
So talk about what that shift is.
Well, it's just you're having people that are living longer that need a lot more help earlier and a lot heavier help, from whether it's incontinence issues or diabetes issues or medication management they can't do on their own, to where, we're talking 2 people assist. We're talking,
So in a community that looks like the independent living used to be very independent,
right,
and now they're a little less so. They look more like the old prior assisted living.
Yeah, what you're seeing now is you're seeing assisted look more like memory look more like skilled nursing, and skilled nursing just being the catch-all of anybody that can't qualify for the other 3.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to say communities aren't doing this well.
No.
These are the gaps that I'm very concerned of, is that we're having people that are definitely waiting longer to move in, which typically means you're seeing higher care needs immediately. Not something you can age, they're aging with you, right? They're coming in very high care needs.
Yes. And that increases costs
for everybody.
For everybody.
Staffing need.
Right.
It
Puts
increases
pressure
staffing
on staff.
training, and increases the stress of everybody involved. The whole entire family stressed because mom was fine 2 weeks ago, but now it just fell off a cliff, and she's can't remember to take her medication. We're not sure if she's eating or drinking. We're just, just literally 2 weeks ago we were great, but now why are we here?
Yes.
And then the emotional component
can happen
tied to all of that.
Yes.
Right. And again, if we're not transparent or offering, I think, those right counseling services or talk therapy for families, not just residents, because it's also a shock to the resident. I was living at home 2 weeks ago. Now I'm here.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. I think I had said to you very early on when we met, I would love to see a social worker from beginning to end working with the family and the older adult.
They do exist, but you need to just bring that service in. Like, you have third parties that can come in and ride that path along.
Families don't know that, and they're not offered it along the way.
Well, I think it's also hard. I think it's hard to find, there's a lot of talk therapists that have this niche in this aging journey. Because I think this is different than a marriage counselor, right?
It is.
Or when you're going through your own, personal stuff about, balancing life, work, kids, all that stuff. Yeah. I think it needs a different skill set of expertise, but I think it's equally as important. And I think that's a program, is to find someone that can walk that journey with you.
I agree.
That has talking about things can sometimes be the best thing.
Yeah.
Right. Just to get off your chest. Like, well, I might not have anything to give you, but just you talking about it for 25, 30, maybe just 15 minutes.
Yes.
Could be so big.
Yes.
Like, all of a sudden it's just like, wow, I feel
you couldn't see this, but off camera, Cambria was in the background going, yes.
Because I think that
we need this. We need this.
That's what's hurting us
so hard
right now in the journey, is we're afraid to talk about it. Like, you remember, we've had my mom on, I think, twice on our show, right?
Yeah.
What's been the recurring theme for my mom?
Guilt.
Every time,
guilt.
No matter how good grandma is, guilt that she's not doing it. Now, granted, her guilt's less because grandma is going to be 96 here on January 12th.
Wow.
Which is 7 days, right? 7 days.
Longevity in your family.
7 days for the women.
Uh-oh.
But she's doing really well in her environment she's been in now for 4.5 years. But my mom told my grandfather as he was passing back in October, November of 2011, that she would handle grandmother, or provide. So that's...
And never put her in a home.
Exactly.
Right?
So, but I think us as families being more expressive as to what we actually want. Like, the hardest thing that we need to do is to tell somebody what we actually want, not what society tells us we want.
Yeah.
That's how we make senior living better, is we have people that honestly say, look, I want this. I might not have had it before, but I want this.
Like the older adult saying that, the family
person we're caring
saying
for,
that.
the family sometimes just need to stay the hell out of it. I mean, in the sense that they sometimes talk over their parent. Not that they don't care, but let's go to the person we're providing care for, and then fill the blanks in. Let's not start with this assumption that.
So this is where I don't know that it's a social worker, but this is teaching family new skills, because families don't know this.
Oh, and this is so hard to do though, because at the end of the day, I want what's best for my mom. Don't get me wrong, and so does every family member.
Yeah.
Problem is, maybe that family member wants to be like, well, I want to be able to go do something stupid. Well, no, mom, you don't want to do that. No, it's okay. I don't care if I get hurt. Like, that's
not
really
putting
hard.
them in a bubble.
But that's really hard as a kid when your parents like, I'm fine like walking by the street by myself. Like if I fall and break my hip, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like for us as kids to hear that though, it's like, oh, like
I can't have you do that. It's like, yes. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. It's like when I mean they need to kind of stay out is, and I don't mean that, I mean that we've got to somehow get back to the voice of that person we're providing care for and make sure that's not being lost in everything. Like let's use memory care, for example. We can try to get as much from that person that has the cognitive challenges and then fill the rest in. But let's not start with assuming that we know we all do it, because we'll do it too. We're guilty of, we assess them and go, oh, we know exactly what she needs. Right. You know, and at the end of the day, like after we know them for a month, well, actually everything we thought we knew is kind of opposite, because after taking care of her for 30 days, we started kind of figuring out, no, she actually likes it this way, like, or that way, or, you know, it's really hard though. And it's hard to let go of.
I go back to, I do think that there's a lot of education and skill building for families, because you're suddenly put in a role that you don't know. You've never had to do. You've done it with your children, but not with an older adult who has their own free will and can make their own decisions. And you're not responsible for them. And but you're not.
I think you got to talk about, there's a legit role reversal that occurs. And I think that's part that you need a lot of therapy on that. Cause like I even talked to my mom about it. She said, you know, as long as I've been doing this space, that's going to be really hard. If mom gets to that point where I've got to start kind of really making decisions for her, it's going to be weird.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's weird. Right. But we've still got to.
But are you making the right decisions? And we've talked about this a lot.
Have that over and over again. So, I mean, it's one of those things you got to get some help, like not necessarily just help to do it, but help to talk about it. Cause it's a lot to unwrap. All of a sudden, it's like my mom took care of me for 70 years. And all of a sudden, like, I got to decide if she should take these meds. I got to decide if she needs surgery. I mean, like for my mom, I mean, it's like
while you're still living your life and all the other things. Yeah. So, prediction wise, what are your thoughts for 2024? How will that play into 2024? What do you see changing or happening?
I see we're going to see some operators that go back to basics that are going to be struggling. You know, and I think we're going to see some newer buildings that are struggling to sell this resort style living at these new price points that maybe they'll be good in a couple years. I think there's going to be some slower times to lease up in a lot of these markets because of the higher price points. I think all of them are going to be fine.
So you think the price point is
I think it's going to be initial, but I'm very concerned about the Medicaid component across the country, the low income component, things like that, access for people in rural markets to providers, period. Not even just.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about rural.
Access to rural. I think, and education, it's okay to get older. I think, like you talked about, I think education on family members
breaking that stigma.
I think we need to see a lot more content around the aging journey, not just highlighting tech, not just how tech could help, but actually, you know, it's okay to be pissed that your mom got a dementia diagnosis. It's okay.
The feelings, the process,
it's okay to be upset.
Tools that you can have in your tool belt.
And I also think how to look for communities that the biggest, prettiest one might be great for you as a child, but might not meet your mom's physical care needs because of where she is. And that's okay. Right. For, you know, how does it feel? You know, when a community says we can't accept your mom because of her acuity, you know, how do you respond to that?
Yeah.
Right. Some of those things we've got to work with as well, too.
So you see more content.
I see more communities taking less higher care right now because they're already maxed out.
Okay.
Like they're already maxed.
So
So
you see slower move-ins to the higher
acuity, higher
acuity or higher level
higher
senior
care
living?
needs higher acuity of
Okay.
care, like
Okay.
needing more care. I think you're going to see a little slower. I think you're going to see people be mindful of how much they're spending earlier on in their senior living journey. Like, are they going to be paying the $6,000 for independent living?
Yeah.
Are they going to, or are they going to stay home longer and save that money? And then all of a sudden they're higher care when they move in. I see more creativity around housing, intergenerational stuff. I do see a lot of the campus stuff being taken off, where you can give student housing affordability for students and older adults. I think you're going to see a lot more of that. But the question is, again, how does that play into the acuity issues?
Right.
I think you're going to start seeing in probably 3-4 years, there's going to be a bigger voice about what we're currently doing in this building design, things like that. I think the next generation is really going to have a very strong opinion. The baby boomers.
I think so too. And I think that'll be fun. I can't wait for that.
And I think we're going to find out a lot of stuff we built today, they're not going to like.
Oh, if I had all the money in the world, I could design something that I think would be amazing.
And again, I think you're going to see some adaptations. I think you're going to see some creative designs where the interiors are more modular, where you can rearrange rooms simpler and easier.
Interesting.
Things like that, where now you can maybe get some different angles and things to match the creativity of that person. So,
or make it a one person room and then a 2-person room,
but make it more affordable though. So how can you do affordability? I mean, there's going to be
a little bit of the Golden Girls model.
Exactly. So I think you're going to start seeing some creativity, but I think you're probably a couple of years out. I still think everyone's still trying to solve the staffing. I think staffing's over consuming right now.
Okay. So 2024, you think the one issue is staffing.
It's going to be staffing.
Totally agree.
Staffing. Yeah. And then I think it's going to also be eyes on regulations. What's coming down the pipeline from policymakers that benefit or also hinder the industry, because they think they haven't got enough industry input to make it as strong as it could be. Okay. Fair. All right. Well, we will find out at the end of the year how accurate Francis and I were in our predictions. I will say that at the beginning of COVID, any of you who were with us at that time, Francis predicted at the very beginning of COVID that it would be an 18 to 24 month and you all laughed. Journey. And I said, oh, no, please don't say that. No one thought I was. It turned out to be an accurate one. So we will find out. Stay with us throughout the year. You're going to hear a lot of new exciting things in this first quarter of 2024 from us, the way we are expanding and evolving and growing. Yes. And next week we have a wonderful guest. So don't miss out. Join us next week, 11 o'clock Mountain Time. Yeah, go out, pay it forward, and also have a little fun in the first part of the new year. Yes. Thanks for joining us.